Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to daily call of His Holiness Candramauli Swami. And on this auspicious occasion of appearance day of Sri Ramanujacarya, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, are we going to continue the series, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2?
Was that a hint by you to speak on Ramanujacarya?
I just mentioned, Maharaj, whatever you suggest, please.
I didn't even know about it. Now I'm confused. What should I do? I'm not confused, but I have to make a decision. I have to do a recall with Ramanuj. We can speak a little bit about Ramanujacarya.
Jai. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you. You want me to share something, Maharaj? Or?
There is verses in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that speak of Ramanujacarya. I just can't recall which ones they are. All of my information is stored in different places. So right now we can just speak Gyantimirandasya Ganajana Savakaya Taksun Militamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Smartadatikam Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Astyatya Desatarine Vanshikopa Tarubhischa Pipa Sindhu Pevacha Patikanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. There are 4 sampradayas, or disciplic successions coming from the Supreme Lord himself. Sampradaya really means a chain of acharyas, or those who have established spiritual principles and are on the level of pure devotional service, who are selected according to a particular time period and preaching that they illustrate in connection with a particular lineage that they are connected with. So these 4 sampradayas are what is called the authorized process by which one can find eternal religious principles. Outside of the sampradayas, one cannot practice the process of pure devotional service effectively, because these sampradayas are authorized by the Supreme Lord himself. So the Supreme Lord is the head of every sampradaya, but each sampradaya has a particular acharya, which is foundational to that sampradaya and establishes the principles by which the teachings of devotional service unfold and develop. And so we have Sri Sampradaya, which is the Ramanuja Sampradaya, which is headed by Lakshmi. We have the Madhva Sampradaya, which is headed by Madhvacharya, which is part of our Sampradaya, which is Sri Gaudiya Madhva, Sri Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Our Sampradaya head is Lord Brahma, coming from Lord Krishna himself. And then we have the four Kumaras in the Chatur Shushana Sampradaya, or we might say what's the name of that Sampradaya? Let's see, coming from the four Kumaras, headed by Nimyadita. Nimyadita appeared in the time of Lord Chaitanya, but he actually was a manifestation of can't think of the person. And then you have I remember
Nimbarka Maharaj, Nimbarka,
Huh?
Nimbarka.
Nimbarka Sampradaya. He was Nimbarka. Appeared again on Chatur Sushana, the four Kumaras, which are the incarnations of transcendental knowledge. And then the other Sampradaya is we have Sri Madhva, which includes our Sampradaya. And then you have the
Rudra Sampradaya.
we have Vishnu Swami with the Rudra Sampradaya. Okay, these four sampradayas are the authorized process by which one can practice pure devotional service, following in the footsteps of the acharyas who lay the foundation for the teachings. And therefore, we see the strength of the sampradaya's ability to manifest eternal religious principles and perpetuate its sampradaya comes by way of heralding the acharya as the foremost person. So that in the Sri Sampradaya, that is Ramanujacarya. And because the Sri Sampradaya is very keen and very expert at keeping Ramanuja teachings forefront in their practice of devotional life, although they have more than about 85 to 90 different acharyas who have come in the line since Ramanuja Sampradaya, since Ramanuja, these 80 all follow the teachings clearly and teach the teachings, teach the philosophy of Ramanuja. Ramanuja was very expert at understanding the more final aspects of the philosophy of spiritual life. And he illustrated that through many of his disciples. I'll tell some pastimes which illustrate some of the main points in that sampradaya. And one of them, one particular point is that one particular disciple of Ramanuja, his name was Dasarati. He was actually the nephew of Ramanuja. And one day, Ramanuja's niece came to see Ramanuja. She was in a distressful condition. She had just newly became married. And her mother-in-law, who was governing the household at the time, because it's understood that the woman moves into the house, all of the husband. Her mother-in-law, was quite harsh with her, making her work very hard and doing all of the chores of the house. And many of them were chores that required a lot of physical effort. And her mother-in-law was pushing her very hard. And so she was distressful. She came to Ramanujacarya. So he listened and he said, well, just go back and try to satisfy your mother-in-law up to the point where you can do it. So without a solution, she left, feeling somewhat unhappy. Soon after that, Dasarati came. Dasarati was a great scholar, and he knew the Vedas well, and he wanted to understand deeper one particular verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the concluding verse in the Bhagavad Gita, the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, not the concluding verse. And that was Sarva Dharma Pariksit-jam Mamekam Saranam Bhajam Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayashyami Ma Suchaha. So he said to Ramanujacharya, please, Guru Maharaj, can you explain the meaning of this verse? He wanted the actual meaning of that verse, because the verse, Krishna says, just surrender unto me. Don't hesitate, don't fear, don't worry. I'll give you all protection. I'll elevate you to the point of perfection. You just surrender to me. That's all. Give up all of your own ideas on how you can make progress in spiritual life or in life itself, and just surrender to me. So Ramanuja said, well, I have some service for you. Your cousin, my niece, she has just got married, and she's in a very distressful situation. Her mother-in-law is making her work very hard to do things. So you go to where she is and you assist her in the chores of the house. So, being a very obedient disciple, he immediately took the instruction and went to the place where his niece was, his cousin. And he introduced himself as he knew who he was. He said, on behalf of our Ramanujacharya, he has sent me to assist you in carrying out the chores of the household. So she became very happy. And some of the chores were like chopping wood in order to prepare for the meals, hauling water from the well in order to cook, and doing other chores around the house, which required a lot of physical labor. So Dasarati started to take up many of these things and assisted his cousin. And so in order to do that, he got into his work clothes and was working like an ordinary menial, worker. So he did this for a while. And one day, he was walking through the town, dressed in his work clothes, and he saw a large gathering of people. And then he became curious. So he wanted to see what was the occasion. So he went, got very close, and he saw in the middle of this gathering, there was a preacher, and he was preaching philosophy from the Vedas, or from the scriptures, you might say. And so Dasarati, he knows the scriptures well, so he decided to listen. And while he was listening, he wasn't so happy to hear what this orator was speaking. And so he was exhibiting some dissatisfaction in his bodily motions and in his facial expressions. And so this orator, he noticed that. And then he turned, not knowing who this person was. And he said, oh, you think you know more than I do about what I'm speaking about? Let me hear your explanations. And so Dasarati took the same things that he was explaining and explained it in a perfect Krishna conscious way, with all support from other verses to give credence to everything he said. In other words, he spoke it so perfectly and so clear, with all resources backing it up, that the crowd was amazed, and so was the orator. And the orator was astonished. Here was this ordinary worker, and he's speaking his clear philosophy of Vedic literature. And he became somewhat incredulous, and he spoke. He said, "That was wonderful. But you're just simply a worker. You're just doing hard, menial work. Who are you?" He said, "Well, my name is Dasarati." And Dasarati had a reputation. And so when he heard that name, the orator, he said, "You're Dasarati, the famous Dasarati, the expert on Vedic knowledge? What are you doing? Why are you dressed like that? Why are you doing all this menial activity?" He said, "Well, that was the instruction of my spiritual master, Ramanujacarya. So I'm simply carrying out his order." And then, after some time, he came back to Ramanujacarya. Ramanujacarya says, "Now you understand the answer to that verse?" And he did, which means that verse means whatever the spiritual master orders, that is the process that Krishna is speaking. Give up all of your own ideas on how you can make spiritual advancement, and just follow the orders of the spiritual master. Make those orders your focus. Make the orders your life and soul. And that is the meaning of that verse. So when Dasarati, Ramanujacarya used Dasarati as an example, at the same time he was so, eclectic, or he was so resourceful, that he could satisfy his little niece too by getting her the help she needed. So this was a very important part of Ramanuja's way of conveying transcendental knowledge. One time, another one of Ramanuja's, I can't remember his name, and he came to Ramanujacarya, and he said, "Ramanuja, I have a very important question which I can't solve. I think I know that you can help me." Ramanujacarya said, "What is your question?" He said, "I want to know what are the qualities of a sincere devotee, of a surrendered devotee." Ramanujacarya said, "Well, you should go and ask Srila Purnam. He can give you the answer." Now, Srila Purnam was a distance away. In fact, he was quite a long ways away. He was staying in Tirupati at the time. And so he was thinking, wow, I have to go all the way to Srila Purnam, but it's important, and this is what Ramanujacarya has instructed me. All right. So he went. So he came to see, and Srila Purnam was there, and he was more or less organizing all of the activities in that area for devotion to the deity. And so he approached Srila Purnam, and he said, "I was sent here by Ramanujacarya to get an answer to a question that I have." And Srila Purnam said, "Well, what is your question?" He said, "I want to know what are the qualities of a sincere and surrendered devotee. What are the characteristics, their qualities?" Srila Purnam didn't answer him. And he said, "Well, you stay here for some time and you help out." So he did. And he started doing service, assisting Srila Purna in so many ways. And then he stayed for 6 months, in fact. After 6 months, of course, just before the 6 months ended, there was a big festival. And there were so many devotees who came for the festival. And Srila Purna came to this devotee and said, I want you to serve prasadam to the devotees. He immediately accepted the service and very happily served prasadam during the festival. In fact, he put everything else aside to organize the prasadam nicely. So after that, as soon as he did that, then Srila Purna came to him and said, what was your question again? Well, he said, I want to know what are the qualities, characteristics of a sincere and surrendered devotee. And Srila Purna said, well, a sincere devotee is like a crane, like a male hen, like salt, like you. Like a crane, like a male hen, like salt, and like you. And then he left. So he gave him the answer, but he couldn't figure out what the meaning was. And so after some time he left, and he went back to Ramanujacarya. Ramanujacarya remembered him, and he said, well, did Srila Purna answer your questions? He said, well, I asked him, and this is what he said. He said that a sincere and surrendered devotee is like a crane, is like a male hen, is like salt, and is like me. So Ramanujacarya could immediately understand the answer, but this person couldn't. So he wanted the explanation. So Ramanujacarya said, a crane, he goes by the river, stands on his one leg, and he watches the fishes going by. He stands on the bank of the river. And when he sees the small fishes, he lets them go by. When he sees the big fish, he grabs them. And when the rains come and the river floods, he goes to the ocean and gets away from the flooding rivers. So a crane will not take part in petty activities. He wants to do the best thing in life. So he goes for the big fish. In other words, he's only interested in associating with devotees and not with materialistic people. And when the place becomes too crowded with materialistic people, he leaves that place and goes to the ocean where there are many great devotees, the ocean of devotion. And so then he said, well, what about a male hen? He said, a male hen will work very hard to find food for his babies. The mother is there with the babies, and he'll go out, he'll go to the dustbins, he'll go to the fields, and he'll look for these little seeds that are left strewn around. He'll grab these seeds and he'll take them to the to the chicken, the woman, the female hen, for the babies. So he's going through dirty places that are not so nice, but he's finding what he needs. So a pure devotee, a great devotee, will see the essence in everything. He'll always try to see Krishna in everything, or devotional principles in everything. Even amongst the non-devotees, it says that one can take gold from a filthy place. One can accept a wife from an obscure family. And there are many statements similar to that. So that is the quality of a male hen. He'll go to places that are not so nice and find food for his children. Salt, yes, salt. This is interesting, Ramanuja said. When you cook a preparation, you add salt and then you serve it out and people taste it and they think, oh, this preparation is very nice. But nobody praises the salt. Although the salt may make a difference in the taste, still no one says, oh, the salt is very nice. Everyone praises the cook or the preparation, right? So devotee's like that. He's like the salt. He makes the difference, but he doesn't want any recognition for himself. He may do wonderful service, but he always stays in the background, not interested in getting glorification or eulogies. That is the nature of a devotee. He's prideless and humble and not interested in personal aggrandizement. But still, he works in such a way that others are pleased. And the last one, he said, you, Ramanujacarya said, yes. Yeah, when he asked you to serve prasadam, you immediately did the service, and therefore you surrendered. So that is a sincere devotee. When he's given the instruction by his superior, he's always eager to carry it out with enthusiasm. So then he spoke these four principles of what it means to be a sincere devotee. Ramanujacarya used a lot of these different analogies to make his point. There's one particular story in the life of Ramanujacarya, which is quite interesting. He was traveling with his brahmacharis to different places, and he came to one town where there was a very rich disciple of him, of Ramanujacarya. So Ramanujacarya told his two brahmacharis he was traveling with, you go to his home and you tell him Guru Maharaj is coming this evening for prasad, so please prepare. So they left, they came to the house of this person, and then he opened the door. He said, oh, the disciples of Guru Maharaj. And they came in, and then they said, well, actually, Guru Maharaj is coming tonight to your home. So make all preparations, get everything ready, have nice prasadam. So he became so excited, this rich man. And he started calling his assistants, his servants, cooks, and everybody, and starts giving orders. Now he's completely not even looking or talking to the two brahmacharis who were there. He's simply orchestrating this big ceremony that he thinks will happen tonight. And then the two brahmacharis, they just said, well, he doesn't seem to want to have anything to do with us now. He's so busy, so we just left. So they just left. So they left and they went back to Ramanujacarya. And then he asked, did you tell him? Yes. How did he react? Oh, Guru Maharaj is very excited that you're coming tonight. Yes, but how did he treat you? Well, in his excitement, he pretty much didn't even speak to us. Even after we told him why you were coming, he completely neglected us and just went around making all arrangements. Ramanujacarya said, I'm not going to his home. But I have another disciple here who is very poor. You go, he's usually out begging, and you go to his home. His wife is usually there. And he doesn't have anything, but his wife will greet you. You go and you tell his wife that I will come to his house tonight for prasad. So they went, they knocked on the door, and she was so poor, they were so poor, she wasn't even properly dressed. She could not even open the door. She was just peeking out through cracks in the door, and she was embarrassed to come out in public. And they said, "Oh, Mataji, Guru Maharaj is here. He wants to come tonight for prasadam. Please prepare everything for a nice feast for Guru Maharaj. And then they left. And then she was thinking, oh my God, Guru Maharaj is coming. We don't have anything in the house. My husband is out begging just to get enough food for us to live from day to day. And now Guru Maharaj is coming for prasadam. What can I do? So she was really in a quandary, thinking what to do. Then she remembered there's one merchant, he owns a shop which sells many groceries. And this merchant, he was always after her. She was quite attractive. So when she would go sometimes to his place, he would try to allure her in different ways, but she wasn't interested in him. But now she thought, I have to do something to satisfy my spiritual master who's coming. So she went to him and she said, she came and he came, he was there. Oh, she's here again. So again, his lusty desires became aroused just simply by seeing her. And she said to him, my Guru Maharaj is coming. Please give me all of these ingredients. I want to cook a nice feast. And in exchange, I will satisfy your desires. So the merchant was thinking, she's finally surrendered. Okay. So he gave her whatever she asked for, vegetables, other rice, and all the ingredients for a nice feast. So she took it all home, and then she cooked this feast, beautiful feast with all of the ingredients. Her husband came home, in the early evening, and he had a very unsuccessful day in begging that day. And then he said, where did you get all of this food? Oh, well, Guru Maharaj's disciples came and said that Guru Maharaj is coming tonight for lunch at our home. And I didn't know what to do. So I went to this grocer, the grocer I tell you about, he's always after me. And I told him, give me as much boga that you can spare, and I want to cook a nice feast for my spiritual master, and I'll satisfy all of your desires. So her husband was somewhat happy that she was willing to sacrifice her chastity in order to please the spiritual master. So that night, Ramanujacarya came, and she offered this beautiful feast. And then he was eating the feast, and he was enjoying the feast. And then at one point, she started to cry. And then he asked her, why are you crying? And then she explained the situation. Ramanuja thought, what can I do to help? So he left some remnants, and he said, give me a cloth wrapping. And then he took the remainder of the remnants and he wrapped it. And he said, when you go to see this merchant tonight, you give him this food. So Ramanuja was very pleased by her devotion, her surrender, and she went to see that merchant. So she came and he was all excited. And she said, well, I have the remnants of my spiritual master here. He wants to offer this to you, since you have provided this nice food. So he took it and he started to eat it. And while he was eating it, his whole consciousness was completely changed. He started to lament, he started to feel bad, he started to chastise himself. He was thinking, oh, you're such a wonderful and chaste and sincere wife and a devotee of your spiritual master. I'm such a wretched fool. I was chasing after you for my own selfish interest. And so he gave up his idea, and then he also gave her more groceries, and she left. And so everybody was happy with that situation. And this is an example of some of the disciples of Ramanujacarya. They will do anything. Ramanujacarya inspired such devotion to him that his disciples would do anything to please him. Anything. We have the example of Koresh. Koresh was one of the main disciples, practically the main disciple of Ramanujacarya. And when one king, King Kolatunga, he was envious of Ramanujacarya because Ramanujacarya was preaching Vaishnavism, and he was a follower of Lord Shiva. So he wanted to cause harm to Ramanujacarya, so he arranged for a debate between his pundits and Ramanujacarya, and he sent out his messengers to invite Ramanujacarya for this debate. But his plan was that if Ramanujacarya won the debate, then he would kill him. And if his pundits won the debate, obviously, then they would be in superior position. But Koresh was one of the brahmachari disciples of Ramanujacarya. He understood that this Kolatunga has a very evil intention. So he looks a little bit like Ramanujacarya. So he put on the same cloth as Ramanujacarya went, and he went in his place. And so, and then of course, Koresh also knew the philosophy quite well, and he defeated these pundits. And then Kolatunga, he became angry, and of course, after some time, he realized it wasn't Ramanujacarya. So he wanted to punish Koresh. So he told his evil servants, it was Koresh, and also Mahamuni was also there, another person, to blind them. So they forcibly blinded both of them, took them into a place in the jungle, and left them alone. They were trying to get back to Ramanujacarya, but being blinded, they didn't know where they'd gone. Mahamuni was an old man at that point. He said, I can't go any farther. I'm going to sit down here, and I'll leave my body. You can try to go on. So Koresh, somehow or other, he was helped by some travelers, and they took him back to Ramanujacarya. When Ramanujacarya saw what had happened, he was really very unhappy what had happened to Koresh. But Koresh had surrendered everything in order to protect his Guru Maharaj. So a little later on, after some time, Ramanujacarya was worshipping Bhartaraj, the beautiful deity, in, was it Kanchipuram, I think, yeah. And so he said to Koresh, he said, Koresh, you go to Bhartaraj and you ask him to restore your eyes, your eyesight. So Koresh wasn't so enthusiastic about that because he didn't want to ask the Lord for anything for his personal interest, but Ramanujacarya had sent him. So he went and he sat right in front of Bhartaraj, but he didn't say a word. He just sat there very humbly. The Lord spoke to him. He said, you've come? Why have you come? And he didn't say anything. He said, I've come because my spiritual master asked me to come. But he didn't ask anything because he didn't want to ask anything from the Lord. And then he turned around and left. And then he went back to Ramanujacarya. And then he said, did you ask Bhartaraj? And he couldn't respond because his natural humility was, I wanted to, follow your instructions, but I couldn't ask the Lord for anything on a personal level. So Ramanujacarya understood his heart. So he said to him, all right, in that case, you go back to Bhartaraj and you say to Bhartaraj, I've lost something that belongs to my spiritual master. Can you please give it back? In other words, the disciple becomes the property of the spiritual master. And therefore, the eyes of the disciple is also the vision of the spiritual master, because the spiritual master works through his disciples to perform services. And so he went back to Bhartaraj. And again, he sat there without saying anything. Bhartaraj could understand the whole situation. He said, "You've come again." "Yes." "Why?" "Well, I've lost something that belongs to my spiritual master." "What is that?" Bhartaraj, of course, he knew. He said, I lost his eyes. So could you please give him back?" And then immediately Bhartaraj restored his vision back. So here's an example of how humble and how surrendered the devotees of Ramanuja, especially Koresh. Koresh was so exalted that there's even one temple. I saw the temple in pictures. It's a temple of Koresh where people worship Koresh as the supreme deity of that temple. Of course, he was such a loyal disciple of Ramanujacarya. He was his best disciple. But Ramanujacarya had so many amazing disciples that were fully surrendered, fully qualified. That's why the Sri Sampradaya is one of the most vibrant sampradayas in India today. It is still very strong in its teachings, in its practice, in its worship. And if you go to Tirupati and Sri Rangam, you'll see especially the Ranganath temple. There's a beautiful temple. Lord Chaitanya spent 4 months living there in the house of Gopal Bhatta Goswami's father. What was his name? Venkata Bhatt. Venkata Bhatt was the father of Gopal Bhatt, who later became Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So Lord Chaitanya spent 4 months there in the Sri Sampradaya. And of course, there was many pastimes with the Lord. And I can also speak personally. We went on pilgrimage to Sri Rangam, Tirupati a few times, once in 2005 in the beginning of 2006, once in 2010 in the beginning of 2011. When we met many of the pundits and also the devotees of the Sri Sampradaya. And one of the principles that Ramanujacharya taught was service to the Vaishnavas. So Lord Chaitanya, when he was adopting his process of Krishna consciousness, took 2 principles from each of the 4 sampradayas and made it his 8-principle program. And from Sri Sampradaya, he took the principle of service to the Vaishnavas. The service of the Vaishnavas is higher than service to the Lord, because the Vaishnavas are very dear to the Lord. And therefore, one who serves and pleases the Vaishnavas gets the supreme mercy and benediction of the Lord. So, so there are many, many wonderful pastimes of Ramanujacharya. We just touched on a few, but because of time, we have to conclude here.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. It's such a wonderful class. Really, so many amazing points that you mentioned on great like pastimes of Ramanujacharya and his great disciples. And it's really eye-opener for at least for me. Thank you very, very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna devotees, if you have any questions, comments, any realizations, please unmute yourself. And if you would like to type in chat window, I can read on your behalf. And also request everybody to please switch on your video so it can be more interactive. Yeah, it can be more interactive with Maharaj, and it's really nice experience. And Sridevi Mataji, yes, you have raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Such an enchanting class on Ramanujacarya and his disciples. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. I just have to echo Vrindavanath Prabhu's words. So my question is this, Guru Maharaj. We can see how Suresh was completely surrendered, completely devoted, completely obedient to the spiritual master. And for us, disciples in Kali Yuga, we are products of this age. We are full of so many misconceptions and our own, ideas about how things should be or how things should be told to us, and so on and so on and so on. How is it possible for us to overcome all our own ideas and our own pet theories and our own conditioning, basically, and actually understand that the spiritual master really is a representative of the Lord and is just here for my welfare? We don't have this realization or understanding, and so we second guess, we question, we doubt, minimize, even sometimes alter the instruction of the Guru to suit ourselves. I mean, all kinds of things go on. So how we can become like this Quraysh? So inspiring to hear this.
Well, these are exemplary examples, but these examples do exist everywhere, even today. So in order to develop that faith that brings about complete surrender and faith in the Guru, one has to associate and hear regularly from the spiritual master. If one does not hear regularly and associate with the spiritual master and the devotees, that won't develop, because Maya is there, and Maya will be explaining to us what we should be doing. It comes by association, comes by hearing. We have to hear regularly from the spiritual master. Ask questions based on doubts or for clarification, and then accept the answers and move forward. When Prabhupada, just to illustrate the position of the spiritual master, when someone asked Prabhupada, "Do you know everything, Prabhupada?" Prabhupada said, "I'm not God." But he said, "But I know what I need to know." So what does that mean? That means that the spiritual master knows what he needs in order to do his service as a spiritual master. Otherwise, he can't do it. So Krishna tells him, or Krishna empowers him to do the service because he's surrendered. But if you see the spiritual master like you, that, like sometimes Prabhupada would chant a verse, but he would chant it differently than the actual verse. And sometimes people would say, "Oh, Prabhupada chanted the verse for me." But does that take any away from his qualification of a spiritual master? No. It's incidental. But, spiritual master might forget a verse or might forget a particular point in the scriptures. But still, he surrendered, and he can teach the process of surrender to others. Tasman Guru Prapadyeta Jigyasa Prayamutama. What is it? Prayamutama. Sarve Nishnyatma Brahma Upasrayasrayam. That's 11.3.21 from the Srimad Bhagavatam. That the spiritual master knows this. He knows the conclusion of all the scriptures, and he can also explain that conclusion and all principles based on pure devotional service in opposition of all other forms of arguments. Otherwise, he's not qualified to be a spiritual master. Yeah. The Guru Prabhupada Jigyasa says, Sabde Parecha Nishnatman. Therefore, any person who would seriously desire real happiness must speak out as bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of a bona fide guru is that he has realized the conclusions of the scriptures by deliberation and is able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, should be understood to be bona fide spiritual masters. Well, that verse merely illustrates the position of a spiritual master. Comes in disciplic succession. So you have to know what is the qualities of a guru, what are the qualities and characteristics of a disciple. If you don't know what it means to be a disciple, you can't understand what is the qualifications of a guru either. You have to know both. What does it mean to be guru? What does it mean to be disciple?
So where, humbly I'm asking Guru Maharaj, not challenging me, where can we read about this topic in depth to understand exactly what you have said just now?
So these points are scattered through all the scriptures, but if you want to know it in depth, there's one particular book which I recommended to all aspiring disciples called Spiritual Master and Disciple.
Ah, yes.
And it's a compilation of all of Prabhupada's statements on this subject matter.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, it's a beautiful. That's by Shubha Vilas, compiled by Shubha Vilas Prabhu, right?
No, it's Subhananda.
Shubhananda, sorry, yes. Yes, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for that reminder, because I do have that book and I have the PDF. I will read that again. It's very inspiring. Today's class is very inspiring to me. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. My humble obeisance.
Hey, I can take one more question because of the time period. I have an appointment at 2:50 in about 10 minutes that I have to get to. So one more question, if we can take it. Or two quick questions, either one.
So Maharaj, while wait for other devotee, I will just ask for one quick question. So like Ramanujacarya in this Shri Sampradaya, it's like coming from Gaudiya, like coming from Vaishnava Sampradaya, one of the Sampradaya. So I'm always confused why this originated from Shri, like from Lakshmi ji, while it's coming from Vaishnava Sampradaya.
Shri is Lakshmi and she's with Narayan. So these sampradayas are bhakti in the mood of Aishwarya. At least Ramanujacarya, they teach, surrender and service to Lakshmi Narayan. That's their teachings. And Narayan is Krishna in another form, that's it. Narayan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And to achieve love for Narayan means one will attain to the spiritual world Vaikuntha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is practically the only one teaching the process of pure devotional service to the level of Goloka Vrindavan because of Mahaprabhu's appearance in this age. Of course, they also on there's another sampradaya, Balavat sampradaya. They also teach Bal Krishna, and Krishna in Vrindavan as a little boy. So yeah, the different sampradayas. They teach bhakti, some to Goloka and some to Vaikuntha.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Narayan is one of the prominent expansions of Lord Krishna, and he's none different than Lord Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. So, devotee, like if you have any last question, very last quick question. Scarlett Mataji, yes, one quick question, Mataji, please.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I know that you don't have time, but there's some, for one who is new in the movement, and we are conditioned, we have our condition. So how can one just don't care about the behavior of others, whatever they are, their position or so on, and just concentrate in the service? Is there anywhere we can learn? Is there any book we can buy and learn and how to master this feeling that always looking for how the others are behaving, and that made us to stop and say, this is not, no, I don't want to be in here. I don't want to do this.
No, that's not possible. You can't, it's not possible. There's no book like that either. But it's achievable in association of devotees. That's all. That's the only way it's achievable, when one accepts regular association with devotees and engages in devotional service in the association of devotees. Only then can it be possible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Maharaj, for joining today's session. It's really, really so wonderful. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you, devotees, for joining this today's session. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanandi, Hari 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 Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.